What's up guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, then welcome to our little corner of the internet. Today we're going to be watching a video titled Man Born in the 1846. Talks about the 1860s and fighting in the Civil War. Enhanced audio. Yesterday we watched two kind of similar-ish videos and I found them quite interesting, so I thought that we could keep the ball rolling for a while. So let's see what this video is about.
I was born on the 17th day of January, 1846. I go back as far as way along in the early 50s. My first recollection of public living, and especially political living, as I may call it.
1846, so he would be... How old would he be? Isn't it like fascinating to hear recordings from so long ago? I don't know, I just find it really fascinating.
Was when I learned as a boy of 9 or 10 that my home was in the state of Virginia. I didn't know about states before that time. Then time passed pretty rapidly because I was attending high school. And I remember distinctly the occasion when John Brown, the poor man, sought freedom for the slaves.
Oh,
Then
imagine. He remembers the time when they gave freedom to the slaves.
came up the great struggle when the Republican Party had become a power in the land. In 1860, Mr. Lincoln was elected, as you know. And I remember that there was a good deal of excitement in my section. Now, I was attending school, as I said, and when in the spring of 61, when news came that war was actually declared. In fact, it had been coming when South Carolina, as we heard, seceded from the Union. Well, wonder now what Mr. Lincoln will do when he is seated on the presidential chair. Well, there was a variety of feeling about it, even among our 75 or 100 young men, boys, at school. But right at once, when war was declared, about half of our pupils, young men over 18, quit school, joined companies of infantry, cavalry, and in their homes, in surrounding counties, and in that vicinity.
Wow, does this image look like someplace that you guys have been before? This looks so familiar for some reason. That looks exactly like somewhere that I've been before. Weird.
I want to go too, but my father said, "Now, son, you're too young." I was just 15, just a little past.
Just 15?
If the war continues long enough, you may have an opportunity. Well, so I rested. And
wow, I want to go, and then the dad said you can't because you're just 15. But if the war is long enough, you might have your opportunity to go to war. I mean, I guess it was seen like as something respectful, right? Obviously, but
war began, and I heard
so
about
young.
it. And I heard that at the Battle of Williamsburg, some of my classmates fell in the battle there. Well, I grieved about that because they were boys that I'd been brought up with. They were a little older than I, but I felt sorry that they were killed. Wow. Then, in 62, although General Lee had still a pretty good army, he began to need more men, naturally. Although the big battles, or the largest battles, had not come yet. But my neighbors around there, some of them who were over 45, kinsmen of mine, some of them, began to just get up a company of cavalry. And I, a boy of 16 and a half years old, joined the cavalry company, which afterwards was attached and counted with others among the 24th Virginia Cavalry. Now, for a long time then, from August 62 on until 64, great battles had been fought in there. We heard of the Battle of Gettysburg. And finally, our corps, our camp company, was taken away from the Blackwater border, guarding that section of the country from the incursions of Federal soldiers who might cross the Blackwater River and the Chuan and come over into Confederate territory. We were taken in the spring of 64, our regiment was, in the neighborhood of Petersburg.
He remembers the times very, very clearly. Wasn't the war declared then in 61, did he say? And this is 64 now. Or am I mistaken?
And while we were camped just north of Petersburg, General Grant began his invasion of that part of Virginia. We heard about it, and I remember very distinctly one morning we heard that General Lee had crossed the James up north and was coming down the Turnpike Road in the direction of Petersburg, just near us.
Oh, guys, by the way, if I'm not talking much and I seem like I'm like, because my English is pretty good, but it's not like good enough to listen to this without thinking, you know, like because of the accent and the audio, I have to actually like listen to understand. So that's why I'm like focusing on the words, because I really want to hear what he's talking about.
And the next morning, happening to look while I was on guard across the James River, there we saw long lines of blue, the infantry of the Army and the United States flags on the other side of the James, coming down to beyond the mouth of the Appomattox River that flows into the James, in order to cross on the pontoon bridges and thus begin the invasion of that part of Virginia and in the city of Petersburg. Thus, I was not with that part of the army. My regiment was moved up north of Virginia, out of Richmond, north of Richmond, and thus we guarded that city for several months while General Lee and General Grant were struggling there near Petersburg.
North of Richmond. Wow, look at these photos. So many people. What is that little boy doing there? Can you guys see that? Where I'm pointing with the arrow? There's a little boy standing there, no? With a white shirt. That's weird.
While that was going on, there were some skirmishes and one, small battle I was in. I was not in any of the larger battles, probably fortunately, maybe unfortunately. Well, General Ewell commanded the General Lee's corps near Richmond. And I remember we were called up one day and took the Darbytown Road, and some mile or two, I don't know, we never counted distances or time in those days. We turned off from the road, main road, and went down a road through a wood. After a while, came to an opening, and there was a line of blue boys and with some artillery. And we charged them, and that's where I was struck the first and only time in my leg, which laid me up 2 months. I was sent home on furlough.
Oh.
Now, I want to bring in one or two little points there that might be of interest to some. We were around Richmond, my regiment was, all the time then, on doing little of nothing, while that war was still going on. And after a while, a Saturday evening, the first day of April, 1865, we were ordered, and by the way, in the meantime, about half of my regiment had lost their horses. The Confederate soldiers owned their own horses, and when they lost a horse, it was difficult at that stage to secure a substitute. Anyhow, I lost mine. I've forgotten just now how. I don't believe it. I don't believe it was in battle, however, at that time. Now, orders came for a dismounted part, or demounted, I might say, of the regiment to fall in line and march. We stopped on the way and spent the night. That is Saturday
He said that he lost his horse, right? Horse or...
night. The next day was a beautiful day, Sunday. We didn't know what was going on. We were within a mile of Richmond, and there was a turmoil there. And that day, as you all know, that day, the President Davis was attending his usual services at his church, St. Paul's Church. Right in the midst of the sermon, the front door opened, and a courier rushed in and went up to President Davis, handed him the paper. He opened it, and it was a dispatch from General Lee saying, "Mr. President, I am so heavily pressed by the enemy that I'm compelled to abandon Petersburg." Mr. Davis arose and left, and the congregation broke up, and in a few minutes almost, there was pandemonium then in Richmond. We marched out of Richmond early the next morning, on the 3rd, and started in a southeasterly direction. We didn't know which way, nor where we were going, but afterwards it showed that we were attempting...
Sorry, what are these? What are these? What are these balls? Why are there so many? What are they though?
Which way, nor where we were going, but afterwards it showed that we were attempting, on the General Ewell's command, to come in contact with General Lee somewhere down southwest of Petersburg. Well, the Federals under General Sheridan overtook us, our command of about 3,000, in Amelia County, Virginia, and after fighting several hours, General Ewell surrendered us, and thus I became a captive. I went to prison along with this command, and we landed in Point Lookout, Maryland, down here. Now, comes up the question of what we Southern soldiers fought for. My friends, as a boy of 16 and a half years old, I didn't think about any abolition of slavery. My mind wasn't developed enough to take in what the politicians had in mind, and hence there was no trouble as to the freedom of the slaves. The South did not fight for the preservation or extension of slavery. My friend, this was a great...
That is such a kind of sad but interesting thing to say. He said at 16 and a half, he didn't understand why, like, he didn't really understand what he was even fighting for, but...
The South did not fight for the preservation or extension of slavery. My friend, this was a great curse on this country that we had slavery. And I thank God that I did not bring up my boys and girls under a system of slavery under which I was brought under. What did you boys fight for then? Here's what great many people do not know. That as a young man that way I couldn't understand it fully. But I look back now and see my part in it and saw what we struggled for. And that was for states' rights. For states' rights. And as many of you know, immediately after the war, the rights of the various states, well, especially in the South, were very much curtailed, if I may use that word. And since then, I have noticed, you let things come up that encroach on the ordinary states' rights, which we have preserved, and we find that the North the boys that wore the blue are with us in preservation of the state's rights.
Well, I didn't talk much through that video because, like I said, I had to concentrate on hearing him out. I have never heard anything about the civil wars or the Civil War. So it was quite interesting to hear, but clearly he has like more kind of stronger memories of some situations, you know. So I wish I had watched a video before this on the Civil War just to understand the concept. But it's still super interesting always to hear from an actual person that's lived through it and hear their stories. I don't know. I love it. Well, I don't love it. Like, it's not like, oh, I love it. Like, there's a war. No. Like, I love history. I love hearing from people who are in these actual places telling stories, not stories, telling their experiences. I should probably be quiet. Either way, guys, thank you so much for joining me for this video. I really hope you liked it. Please leave your thoughts in the comments below. Leave a like, subscribe if you haven't yet, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!